talk about async versus await. New JavaScript. Yeah, these are two mechanisms that they don't necessarily go together all the time. Await always go with async, but not vice versa. And they tend to simplify the process of dealing with asynchronous JavaScript, which has been, historically speaking, one of the main challenges of software development or web development. Yeah? Sometimes it's complicated to orchestrate your different lines of execution. So let's present an example. First of all, async. So imagine that you got a function called is it Friday, and the function returns true. So then we can invoke the function. Let's do console.log is it Friday. What will this function return? True, correct. Can you tell me about execution order? We got only one breakpoint. 3, yeah? Classic question to see who is paying attention. Correct. It works, yeah? Even though the breakpoints don't work at all, but anyway, that's all right. Yeah, so it works. However, does anyone know what happens if I add async in the left-hand side of the function? What will now my function return? A promise, that's correct. That's the main thing of the day. Look, now it doesn't return true or false, it returns a promise. In other words, putting async in front of a function automatically transforms it into a promise. Yeah? So, in other words, how do we access now the result of is it Friday?
You use await.
No, wrong. Then, correct, Buket. Then, result, console.log result. So what will this function return now? True, correct, yeah? Why this is beneficial? Because the alternative, do you know how to return a promise? Let's try to satisfy that line. Only changing that method. So how can we return a promise? Return new promise, resolve, and then resolve true, right? That will be the equivalent. And it works. Also note that there is a shorter way to do that. If you want to return something immediately, you can simply do return promise.resolve. You see? That's the same. That code is equivalent to these 3 lines. When the line number 3 is a good choice, when we want to return something immediately. When the commented lines are a good choice, when we want to do something asynchronously. Yeah, the 2 flavors. Depending on the scenario, you may want to use one or the other. But either way, I hope you agree that these 2 approaches are a bit more stressful than simply putting async and return true. Yeah? That's it. So that's the first usage. Async. And then, as you can see, we don't even need a wait. So async can work by its own. Yeah? Any question? Right. So I hope you pay attention because you'll get that question shortly in the job interviews. Now let's talk about await. So await do need to work with async. We cannot use await without using async. I'm going to create a function called getPlayers. And my getPlayers function will return new promise, resolve, and then return an array of Kim and Donald, yeah? So now I'm going to create another function called getData. So getData will return getPlayers. Why? Because apart from getPlayers, I also want to return getScores. Yeah, the example is a bit stupid, but I hope you get the idea. We have two functions that they take a bit. Actually, to prove that, we can even do a setTimeout. setTimeout, actually that return is wrong, right? That should be resolve. Resolve and resolve. So getScores, it will return whatever, yeah? So setTimeout, and then it will resolve the function after 1 second. Yeah? How many milliseconds has 1 second? 1,000, right? Generally speaking. Depends.
No, actually depends.
Right. Let's leave the discussion until we have some beers, right? getScores. Yeah, and getScores will take half a second or 600 milliseconds, whatever. One more player. You want to know one more player? Vivian. Yeah? Happy? Fantastic. So getPlayers, getScores. So essentially, we want to combine them. We want to have a getData function that will sort everything out for us. Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to do getPlayers. Then once we have the list of players, we want to call getScores. The example is fairly stupid, to be honest. So anyway, we call a function, and once that function has been resolved, we call another function. Yeah. So then we can, let me think about how can we sort this out. So essentially, I want to return an object with all the players and all the scores. So we can return a new promise, return new promise, and then let's put everything inside, something like that. And once and only once we got all the players, and then when we got all the scores, we can resolve everything, right? Resolve players, scores. Do you remember the name of this syntax of this pattern? The structuring. Wrong. That's not the structuring. No, the structuring is when we the structure, right? Like Peter. Sorry. Excuse me. So when we have an exactly. So first name, last name equals this dot state. You remember that? This is the structuring, but that's not the structuring. So that thingy, yeah. This is shorthand, object shorthand. Yeah, another new thing of modern JavaScript. Say it again? When the value are the same, correct. When the value are the same, that's optional, and I like it. I reckon the first time I saw that, I was like, what the hell is that? But once you get used to it, it's pretty handy. So I like it. Right, so that's the idea, right? We got the players, and when we got the players, we got the scores, and then we resolve everything. So let's try to handle that. I will try maybe on top, let's see if that works, to do getData without any arguments, and then result console.log result. What will that print, guys? What is result? You can move down if you want. Do you agree with Walter?
I think the last result should return 34, no? Like the last
34. Why 34, Walter?
because you're not really passing an array.
That's correct. So that will probably return an object with two properties. Players, which is an array of players, but then what happened with the scores? Yeah, probably only the first one is captured, so scores will be a number. Let's see if that's correct. Right, now nothing is printed. Thank you, Google Chrome. Let me try to move things around to see if it reacts. Get data, resolve. Yeah, that code looks correct, right? Let me move it to the bottom. Right, nothing is printed. Get data. So let me review the code to see if I did anything wrong. Get players, return new promise, and then we resolve it. Get the scores, new promise, and we resolve it. That looks good to me, to be honest. Let's set the console log. Console.log, whatever. Yeah, so this is sorted. Yeah, you know, I'm not a big fan of console logs, but if breakpoints don't work, that's the only thing I can do, right? So I'll add some console logs to see where my code is stuck. Is 0, is 1, or is 2? I don't know. Let's have a look. Oh, look at what happened. Oh. Okay, so that works, right? 0, 1, and 2. So, one more is the problem here. So get players, get the scores. Is it the problem with get the scores? X3. X1, X2. Yes, so that get scores function is never resolved. What's the problem with get scores, guys? No, that's another thing. That may not be correct, but that's not the problem. Is what, Vivian? The time. No, the time is correct. There is nothing wrong with the time. No, Davide is completely right. This is one of the things I like about live coding. You do mistakes, so the exercise here is find where the problem is. How many arguments get scores expects? None. Correct. However, look, we're passing a callback, a higher order function. That's wrong. Yeah, that's wrong. The way to type that, scores, then, you see? Yeah, that was my fault. So let's try again. You see? So get players, then get the scores, then resolve. So let's see what that function returns. After 1 second is, look, at least now we're returning something. Yeah, it's good. And as we thought about before, players is correct, but scores is wrong because we should return something like an array. Yeah? All good. No problem at all. You'll see now after 1.6 seconds, yeah, we got players and we got scores. So in other words, that works. That's the classic way to orchestrate asynchronous code, where one request scores depends on another one. I mean, to be honest, again, that example is absolutely stupid because there are no dependencies. Why get scores had to wait to get players? But imagine that we pass the list of players to get the scores. Yeah, so then get the scores, players, and filters the data or whatever. So that's definitely a valid scenario where to invoke a function, we need to wait until another function finishes. This is literally what we did yesterday on the review of the expert challenge. You remember? To get the details of the legends or whatever the question was, we had first to get the IDs. So that was the good example. So that's okay. And again, I think that's that's still valid and no problem at all. However, with modern JavaScript, this is modern JavaScript already, but with even more modern JavaScript, with futuristic JavaScript, if you accept the expression, we can use something called await. So await transforms this callback hell, this asynchronous based code into something completely synchronous, giving the feeling that everything happens immediately, even if that's not strictly speaking correct. So, to use that, first of all, let's create a variable called players. And players equals await get players. Look at how simple it is. Yeah? Now Chrome is complaining because, look at the error, await is only valid within a async function. Yeah? So that's the rule we need to learn. Every time we use await, the function itself needs async. Yeah? Cool. So we got the list of players, and now we can do the same for scores. And that means we can simply now return players' scores. Look at how simpler the code is. It's not just because of the lines of code we save. I don't think it's a huge difference. It's about readability. Yeah? This code is trivial. 2 functions and then return the result. This code is not that obvious. So let's see if it works. 1, 2, it does work. You see, it returns the same code. So I believe this is super sexy. So definitely get used to it as soon as possible. Yeah? And interestingly, even though we are returning an object, yeah, it's an object, in reality, do we return an object or not? What do you think? Yes? No? Wrong? Our function doesn't return any object. Array? Wrong? Correct. Do you remember the first thing we said? Yeah. When we put async, we return a promise. As a side effect, whatever we return is returned as a promise. And that's the reason why, at the end, we can do get data dot then. Yes, so very important, very important. With async, we always return a promise. Any question? No? Right, so on the next 10 minutes or so, let me put back the promise-based example. I'll leave the other one commented for now, because I want to discuss what happens if a promise is rejected. Do you remember that promises can be rejected, right? So what happens if we can get the players, but there is any problem with the scores? Because of whatever reason, we cannot fetch the list of scores. So do you remember how to reject a promise? Wendy? No? Cats? No? We'll talk about cats later on. Correct. As Vivian said, we need to pass a second argument, reject. Yeah? So obviously we may have some if-else, some logic handling, whatever, but eventually we reject it. Yeah? That doesn't work. Yeah? We can obviously pass a message. So now, let's see what happens if we run the code as it is. Let me remove the async thingy. It's not necessary for now. 1, 2, oh. Couple of things. First of all, that looks good, right? Our message is there. However, what I don't really like is getting that error, that red message. Look at the first thing. Yeah? And capture. And correct. That means, what that means? That means that our get data function is throwing an error, but we are not expecting any error. We are not capturing it. So as Davide is proposing, we need to add a catch block here. So then we can display the error. If we try again, look at what happened after 1.6 seconds. Oh, the same thing. And catch, oh, right. Yes, so this is, this is a bit complicated now. So now the problem is, even though we are catching the error here, in here we are not catching it.
No,
Yeah?
I mean, console log, we are looking for it to fail for asking function. Error happens in a function, not in a...
The error happens in line number 8 to 10. Why? Because in here, get scores is not catching the error, so then it's propagated down. So the way to solve it, and I'll show you a more efficient way to do that. I admit that that may take a while to, it's a bit complicated sometimes to deal with promises, but if we catch error, then what?
You can console log error.
We can console log the error. Correct, yeah, let's do that. I think that's simpler. Let's do what Bilius proposed. Instead of propagating the error, let's just do a console log, yeah? Let's see if now we can get the friendly message. 1, 2, that's it, yeah? So that's the way you can capture errors, yeah? Which is all good, no problem at all. What happens if in reality what I want to do is I want to only catch the error at the bottom? This code is a bit overcomplicated, guys, because look at how can we simplify this a bit? It's going to be a bit confusing, to be honest. So my instead of returning new promise, it's okay if you don't understand what I'm doing at the moment, but if you feel brave enough to understand this code, so I'm going to return that straight away, call the function, and then I'm going to return the other one. Yeah, I'm going to do something like that. Then I'm going to return my object, which is a bit complicated to understand, to be honest. So we got players, and then we got the scores, and then we want to return everything, yeah? So we can do something like that. So let's see if that works. Yeah, again, I'm not expecting you all to understand that code, even though it looks now much simpler. So let's see if it works. Yeah, so now we got the same thing. Look at what we've got. So return get players. I don't need to return a new promise because get players is already returning a promise. So get players, that before passing the control down, before that, please go call get scores, and before passing the control down, please, if everything is okay, then return the object with players and scores. But if something goes wrong, because we are already returning the result of the promise, yeah, even though that's okay, eventually everything will be ruined because of get scores. So anyway, that works, yeah, and that's the way you can control successful executions and erroneous executions. That's all good. However, now again, let's try to do the same thing using async await. So once again, I'll comment that code and back to that example. Let me put async back before I forget. So do you think this code will return the same thing? Will we display the error at the bottom or not?
That's a default behavior.
Let's have a look. Let's run the same code using async await. It does work, yeah? Which is a good thing, yeah? Because now we can, again, you see how simple, again, this is, right? So if something goes wrong, automatically the error will be captured. If we put some console logs, because I guess we cannot use breakpoints, correct? So if I do console.log x1, and then if we put x2, and then we put x3, and finally we put x4, or let's just call it 1, 2, 3, 4, right, for simplicity. So we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. How many console logs will get displayed?
Okay, so 1.
So Bilius,
Wait, so 3.
so 1, 2, 3,
3.
not 4?
I'm not sure, because return an error,
Yeah.
and the console the log number 4
Right, 1, 2, 3. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think?
Yeah. Well,
So,
so it could be 2 or 3.
Bilius and Gawa,
I agree.
and Sule. Who else is wrong? So Vivian, 1 and 2. Why?
Because I think it won't be able to affect any scores.
If Bilius and Gonzule are right, that means that in reality we'll be returning the list of players and the list of scores. But as we saw before, that wasn't happening.
But if you have to wait all the data come,
Yeah?
so we're going to log the error. If something go wrong,
Yeah?
we see the error and not anything.
Yeah?
We have to wait all the data before to read something. I don't know.
Let's see what happened. Let's see what happened. First of all, let's run it. 1, 2. Oh, yeah? That's fine. No, you were wrong.
I was wrong too.
3 never happens. Why? Because we start with number 1, no problem, it's Friday, blah, blah, blah. But then, okay, try to get the players. Does it work? Yes, it does work. Yeah, it's resolved. Okay, fair enough. So, number 2 will run. But then we try to get the scores. And what's the problem? And get the scores, we rejected. Using async await, as soon as we reject a promise, we are essentially throwing an exception. If you want to get a bit more details, if you go to MDN, if the promise is rejected, the await expression throws the rejected value, vomits the value. Yeah? Because of that, when we throw a value, it means the function is over. We stop the function. That's why these highlighted lines won't run at all. Yeah, the entire function will be rejected, and that's why we capture the issue on the catch block. Yeah, so that's very important. Yeah, when a promise is rejected, then the function is over. Got 2 minutes left. Do you know how to avoid that? Imagine that, all right, we are trying to deal with players and scores, but if something goes wrong, we still want to return things like scores undefined. Yeah, so we don't want to break everything. We just want to at least partially show some results. Yeah, in other words, if get players works, but get scores doesn't work, still I at least want to display the list of players, which is better than nothing. So do you know how to control that? Try catch. Try catch. You're right, guys. You're right. Look, if we put the try catch block, try to do all these messy things. Actually, I'll get rid of the console logs. Right. I'll be now the human console log. So try to do all these things. Yeah. Try. And then catch. Catch means, A, if something goes wrong, then do whatever you want. Yeah. But don't kill the function. I want to continue doing things. Why this is relevant? Because you can create the variables, first of all, players, scores. So then you can try to get players, you can try to get the scores, and eventually you can return whatever you got. Yeah. Look at the error we got here. So interestingly, in JavaScript, when you capture an error, you need to pass an argument. That's very weird. That has worked like that since 1995 until July 2019. Yeah. Fortunately, one of the things that ES10 will change is this parameter will be optional in July of 2019 after 24 years of battle. Yeah, not 24 years, but after many times. Yeah. So now, hopefully, if I'm right, players should work, right? Because that line number 5, is completely okay. And then, because that line will fail, what will be the value on scores? Let's have a look. 1, 2, 2.5, here you go. Look, scores is undefined, which makes sense because we declare the variable on line number 3. What's the value of scores on line number 4? It's undefined, yeah? We just declare the function, the variable, but without any value, without any assignment, so it's undefined. We try to assign some decent values, but because the line fails, it will be aborted, yeah? So it's like the same as doing that. But at least, because we are capturing the error, we don't abort the function. We continue further down. So at least you see the difference. Instead of breaking everything, at least we managed to return the list of players, which is better than nothing. So is this function get data now resolve or reject? It's resolve, correct. It was going to be reject because of that line, but because we managed to, to sandbox, to capture, to control the error, we can continue working with it. Try catch. Any questions? No? So again, I understand that async await, it takes a bit to get used to it, especially if you don't master promises, which take a bit to fully understand. But my personal suggestion is try to invest as much time as necessary. You only need the tools, you don't need any complex setup. And in your next job interview, don't miss the opportunity to prove, to demonstrate, to talk about async await. That gives a very good feeling about your profile. Yeah? Cool, thank you guys, that was it.